Welcome to Xchanging's 2014 half-year results presentation. Thank you very much for coming this morning. I know it's an extremely busy day in the corporate world, so we appreciate you taking the time to come and join us. And so without any further ado, I'll hand over to our Chief Executive, Ken Lever. Ken.
Thank you, Lexi. So good morning, everyone. Let me add my welcome to Lexi's welcome. So it's very good to see you all here for our half-year results announcement. We're going to adopt a slightly different format this time round. I'm just going to make a few high-level comments, and then I'm actually going to ask David to run through the business performance and also the financial performance related to the businesses overall. And then I'm going to come back on and then talk about some of the strategic developments that are going on in the business and kind of wrap it up at the end with a summary and outlook. I guess the overall starting statement is just say how delighted we are that we're able to announce the results that are very much in line with expectations. We have seen a year-on-year improvement in operating profit on a like-for-like basis. We've seen an improvement in the margin, as we said we would do during this year. And of course we have a very strong financial position as a business. Most importantly all, we're making good progress. We're on track to achieve the two objectives that we set for ourselves at the beginning of the year, which was to maintain the adjusted operating profit for the business and also to provide the platform, if you like, for the resumption of growth of both profit and revenue in 2015. We're also making considerable progress on our strategic journey. So that's a journey to establish a provider of technology-enabled business processing services. The offering's very much focused around technology enablement. We've stepped up the level of investment in the business, again, as we said we would at the time of the results announcement at the end of February. Continuing to focus on our internal change programme, and of course recently announced two very important acquisitions, the acquisition of AGENCYPORT and also Total Objects. So I'm going to come back and talk to those a little bit later on, but first of all I'm going to ask David if he'll take us through the business performance and financial performance.
So thank you, Ken. Good morning, everyone. As Ken said, I'll present the group results and the performance in each of the three businesses. So I'll also give you a perspective on our recent acquisitions and our investment in organic growth in the first half of the year. So the financial performance in the first half was in line with our plan for 2014. We continue to expect to at least maintain adjusted operating profit at the same level as last year before acquisitions, and then move forward to growth from 2015. So the financial indicators illustrate the progress we've made in the first half. We're investing in those parts of the business that offer the potential for strong returns. Significant organic investment is transforming the business from that of a mainstream services provider to that of a technology-enabled services provider. Acquisitions are increasing the proportion of the business that offers pure software solutions and consequentially higher margin expectations. Since 2011, we've invested over 100 million to acquire 4 software businesses, and we're seeing the benefits of this investment in the financial results, in improving margins and growth. So, turning to the income statement, statutory operating profit was 24.2 million compared to 23.3 million last year. Exceptional gains include the final receipt for the surrender of the lease for Leadenhall Street, less our move costs, resulting in a net gain of 11.2 million. Restructuring charges of 2.7 million were incurred in the first half, and we expect to see a similar amount in the second half of the year. We expect non-controlling interest will be slightly higher than last year. The tax rate on adjusted profit for 2014 is forecast to be 22.7%, and this rate benefits from some brought forward losses, so the underlying rate before losses is approximately 26%. However, we expect the utilisation of losses to benefit the group next year also. Looking at the comparison between revenue in this period and the first half of last year, this slide shows the impact of the XTB disposal. The revenue shrinkage bar includes the impact of the exit of our HR business, 2 months of the LME contract reduction, and the reductions seen in insurance. So as a services business, we expect to see some revenue shrinkage as well as growth each year. However, the more significant reductions this year are part of our transformation of the business, and the net position was in line with our expectations of underlying growth. Turning to the bridge for adjusted profit, you can see the impact of the XTB exit. The profit impact from other revenue reductions includes the LME and HR services changes. So I'll talk in some detail about organic investment later, because this is key to ensuring not only that we're able to mitigate the impact of the contract changes and disposals, but also ensures we enter 2015 with confidence of growth in earnings. The delivery of 20 million profit in the period was in line with our plan for the year. So I'd now like to talk about the organic and inorganic investments we've been making as a part of our transformation of the group, starting with the recent acquisitions. Earlier in the month, we announced the acquisition of 2 insurance software businesses, being Total Objects and AGENCYPORT Europe. We've acquired these businesses as they're complementary to Zuba and support our technology enablement strategy, particularly in the insurance sector. Ken will talk more about this later. The total cash payment for both acquisitions in 2014 is expected to be 75.6 million, with potential further payments in future years, about 9.5 million. We fair valued the intangible assets of AGENCYPORT Europe. The software has been valued at 12.5 million and will be amortised as part of adjusted operating profit. The other intangible assets are amortised through the middle column and will not impact adjusted profit. Following Competition Market Authority clearance, the intangibles of Total Objects will be fair valued and the business will be consolidated within the group. The net profit impact of the acquisitions this year will be minor as we incur costs integrating the businesses. Following the acquisitions, the group retains a strong financial position. Our existing banking group have agreed to increase the size of the committed banking facility by 40 million to 165 million. Looking at our total organic investment programme, we expect our full year 2014 capital expenditure to be around 50 million. In 2015, we expect capital expenditure to drop to a more normalised level of around 25 million. So I'd now like to turn to look at the investment plan in some detail, starting with our internal change investment programme. So we've established our shared services centres in India and Basildon. The shared services include functions such as sales, finance, HR and IT. Salesforce in the cloud has been implemented and we're now in the last phase of Workday HR implementation, rolling out the self-service platform globally. We're implementing Office 365 in the cloud and upgrading our cybersecurity controls. We've started a finance transformation programme which will provide a single SAP finance system, supporting our finance shared service and giving our managers the tools and information to better manage resources and costs. As a result of these programmes, we're delivering financial benefits this year, which will grow next year. The investment and returns were part of our profit regeneration plan for this year. During the first half, we spent 4.6 million on fitting out our new office at Walbrook, which has provided a better working environment and resulted in favourable customer feedback. So turning to look at our investment in product development, this has been focused around 4 areas, with an expected investment this year of £26 million. The Zuba investment covers acceleration of the US admitted module, development of the Australian workers' compensation platform, and enhancement of existing Zuba modules. We're investing significantly in product development, automation and process efficiency in the German investment accounts administration business, to ensure we remain competitive in this market. We've invested in new products for the London insurance market, and we're also developing our procurement technology, building on the MM4 software framework. Collectively, these product development investments are delivering returns to mitigate the impact of the strategic exits this year, and we expect the benefits to increase going into 2015. So turning to cash from operations, pre-capital expenditure has been strong in the first half of 2014, increasing from 30.2 million to 39.4 million. Included within the operating cash flow are a number of adjusting items, which I've pulled out in the appendix to show the underlying position. You'll see that even without the benefit of these adjusting items, cash flow remains robust. During July, we agreed with BAE Systems to transfer back the service provision on our very low margin procurement contract with BAE Systems UK. As a result, we would expect approximately 15 million of favourable working capital associated with the contract to unwind in the first half of 2015. We'll continue to carefully manage working capital in 2015, but we will not be able to recover all of the 15 million. And this will be a one-off reduction to our operating cash flow next year. The contract exit is part of our refocusing of the procurement business towards a more technology-based offering, and the profit impact will be minimal. Continuing the review of cash, the equity-free cash flow of 6.1 million is 10 million lower than the same period last year, primarily as a result of our increased capital expenditure. The cash tax outflow includes an exceptional charge of 2.9 million associated with the gain recognised on the surrender of the Leadenhall Street lease. I've included in the appendix the details behind Xchanging share of net cash of 42.7 million. So I'll now talk through the results sector by sector. As I explained during the 2013 full year results presentation, the overall margin for the group reached 10% in 2013, and this will improve further this year as we replace contracts with higher quality revenue. So I'd now like to review the performance of each sector, highlighting how each area is managing the impact of regeneration of profit and investing in growth. I'll start with business processing services, as this is the foundation business. Within BPS, our insurance service line continues to perform well against a background of decreased revenues from broking services. Continued growth in London market volumes, a solid performance in the Australian workers' compensation business, and a well-managed cost base has both minimised the impact on net revenue and increased the operating margin. Insurance Services has continued to invest in the upgrade to the London Insurance Market Repository, in expanding its mobile application services, and in its New South Wales Australian workers' compensation business. Further investment in NetSet will be linked to agreeing commercials with customers following the pilot stage. Our Australian insurance business submitted its RFP response in July to the New South Wales Government to renew the current workers' compensation contract, which has revenues of around £13 million per annum. There's also the opportunity to secure a separate long-tail claims contract. We expect to be told in the autumn this year whether we've been successful. Both 3-year contracts will be effective from January 2015. Turning to financial services, on a like-for-like basis, we continue to see steady growth in revenue and profit in our German, Italian and Indian businesses, and they made good progress in replacing the 7 million of profit from the XTB recognised in the first half of 2013. This month, we agreed with Allianz Global Investors to buy out their put option for 13.6 million euros, so that we now own 100% of the investment accounts administration business. At the same time, we contracted to take legal ownership of the remaining 220,000 accounts covered under the service contract with AGI. So we now have 1 million investment accounts that run on evergreen end customer contracts. Our business in Italy has not yet seen the growth in customers that we expected, although profits have increased as a result of the synergies from the integration of AR and Kedrius. Moving to the technology sector, the 2 software acquisitions will not see a significant increase in 2014 profitability, but will enhance 2015 earnings. From existing businesses, we've progressed the Zuba implementations for Marsh and Everest Re and have a strong, well-qualified sales pipeline as we enter the second half. The application services business in India and Southeast Asia continues to grow through new and existing customers. Turning to procurement, the first half of 2014 was in line with our expectations as the profitable growth in MM4 starts to replace the exited HR business margin. Our newly appointed management team is integrating MM4 with our market-leading procurement services offering. We're investing in the underlying technology platform underpinned by MM4's e-sourcing suite. The new management team will focus on product development and technology innovation. We have a high degree of confidence that margins in the sector will improve significantly in 2015. Ken will talk a little bit more about this in a moment. So to summarise, in the half year we're on track in replacing the profit lost from the strategic exits and other legacy contract reductions, and we remain on target to at least maintain the full year profit. 2014 is a year of investment, both in acquisitions and organic projects. We are expecting appropriate returns on the investments being made. In 2014, we are seeing a return on the investment being made, and we expect further returns next year. We've extended our banking facility to provide financial headroom, and therefore, following the acquisitions, we remain in a strong financial position. So I'll be ready to answer questions shortly, but firstly, I'd like to hand back to Ken to talk about strategic development and the outlook. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Very comprehensive review of the progress of the business from a financial perspective. I often think when you're on a journey, it's as well to look to where you've actually come from, as well as looking as to how far you've actually got to go. So I was thinking about this presentation last night and thought just worth reflecting on the fact if you go back just over 3 years, those of you who remember the sort of start of our journey, we set out what I was calling then a 4-part plan. And that plan was all around reviewing the businesses we were in, focusing on revenue growth and where was revenue growth in the business going to come from. It was about looking at cost and most effective cost management in the business, and also about improving cash flow. And then also, as we've gone through the time since then, I've talked a lot about the changing nature of our industry and how important it is to move into a more technology environment. You know, gone are the days of what I would call low-cost arbitrage and just effectively trying to do the same services but for less because you're doing it from a low-cost environment. And it's become much more important now to focus on the value that you bring to the customer. And of course that value comes through technology. And as I look back, I think the important thing to say today as we reflect on that is that we've done what we said we would do. And I think more importantly, we have moved the business into a much more technology-focused environment towards this overall objective of being a provider of technology-enabled business processing services. Why we've done that, of course, is because it's important for us to be able to differentiate ourselves as a business from our peers and from our competitors. And I think of all of the businesses in our sort of industry, we've been pretty leading edge in terms of trying to drive technology through the business as we go forward. So what I wanted to do today really is to do a number of things. One is I just wanted to talk a little bit about the product and market focus of our business, how technology fits into the business, and then to put that into the context of each of our business areas. Talk a little bit about the investments they were making, and really just to elaborate on some of the points that David was raising, and in particular to talk about AGENCYPORT and also total objects and some of the other areas of investment in the business. And I really try and finally sort of wrap that up in terms of where does that leave us in terms of the journey that we've still got in terms of going forward. So if I ask myself, what is it that we are as a business? Essentially I think what we're trying to do is address the business processing challenges of our customers. And thinking about that perhaps in a little bit more detail, it's about combining innovation, technology, insight into the market and insight into the customer's business, and to develop and deliver differentiated solutions that will actually add value to their businesses. And we've talked about the building blocks of our business before: business processing services, technology and procurement, and how they actually come together. And as you recall, business processing services is really the annuity income, the annuity cash flow of our business. Technology and procurement are seen as those areas where we can bring more technology and where we really see growth opportunities going forward. And some of the offerings that we have, of course, in our business are market agnostic. So if you think of Market Maker 4, that's a product that can go into any number of markets. And then some of the offerings we have, so for example, Zuba, very market specific, has to go into the insurance market. And as you think about each one of those areas, so the requirement for market insight and knowledge actually increases. So in technology and procurement, to a certain extent, those businesses are actually market agnostic. They can take a lot of the services they have into those markets. In some cases, as I say, they are market specific. Business processing services, it's very important for us to have the market understanding, because what we're trying to do there is to provide technology-enabled platforms. And so having the market insight, the knowledge of the market is actually very important. And so where we try to focus the offerings and focus the markets is very much around the insurance, capital markets within financial services, so rather than a sort of broader financial service area, but more capital markets within financial services. Focus on manufacturing, to focus on the logistics area, to focus on healthcare market, and then also on real estate. So those are really the markets that we're actually interested in. And the innovation within our business has to be inspired by an understanding of those markets and an understanding of the problems the customer has. And of course, technology enables you to bring the differentiated offerings to the customer and bring those solutions to the customer. If you combine the innovation and technology, that's where you effectively get the differentiation that you can bring to the business. And then I guess the other thing which I think is always important about the offerings that we're trying to develop is the importance of trying to get intellectual property and for them to be repeatable and scalable. Because if you've got repeatable and scalable offerings, then that actually drives down the costs to sell, but also it shortens the selling cycle. So we, over time, have tried to increasingly focus our business into what might be perceived to be a narrower group of offerings, but it's where we really want to be, have depth of knowledge. So rather than try to be all things to all men, we try and be specialists in certain areas. And then as far as technology is concerned, some of you will have heard us talk before about this idea of big T and little t, which I think really aptly describes what we're trying to do. So big T is about selling technology, and little t is about using technology in our business to apply to the various platforms and services that we offer. So to your left on the screen and my right is very much about the technology that we will supply to customers. And you can see there, three of the branded offerings: NetSet, Zuba, Market Maker 4. And that's very much about them using that technology in their own business and to really solve their business processing issues and problems within their business. And if you look to your right, my left, you see procurement and business processing services actually using some of the technology input from our own technology business. The important point there is that they're using technology to provide services to a customer. So they were actually providing technology-enabled services. And the key thing there is for us to use the appropriate technology to provide the service and for us to make the decision whether that's a build or buy. So we could build it from our own technology capability, or we can partner with somebody. So a good example would be a machine shop, or we could buy in, of course, the software from somewhere else to provide the service to the end customer. Important point, of course, is again to try and focus on the intellectual property, because that gives that stickiness to the offering. So if you think about that in the context of each of our business areas, of service lines. You will have seen this or form of this chart before, not with all of those services identified on it. And what it's trying to do is to show the importance of complexity of processing against the level of technology enablement. So from simple to complex processing and from low to high technology enablement. And the key thing is to recognise that margin and value creation increases as you increase the complexity of the processing, and margin and value creation increases as you add to the technology enablement in the business. Now, what I've put on the chart there, a few of the offerings within business processing services. I haven't put all the technology offerings on there as such. So just to pick a couple of examples, for instance, claims adjusting, a complex process, but actually low technology content, but still a high margin business. If you move over to the right, you see the London Market Bureau, where of course we have the intellectual property for that. You see a high technology component, relatively complex processing, so high margin. And then if you look at the investment administration, fund administration offerings there, in one case, so in the fund administration business in Italy, we own the IP, the intellectual property and the technology for that business. And in investment administration, we buy in that technology because we're using the Diamos platform. Come down into this bottom left, P2P or procure to pay. Generally, what we offer in procure to pay is technology agnostic because we would tend to use a customer's processing, and of course, often customer's technology, and often the processing, it can be relatively well defined and relatively basic processing. So, the challenge for us as we look at the services that we provide is to constantly ask ourselves the question is, can we add technology enablement to these services? What can we do to move them from that left to top right-hand box? And that's really been the sort of progressive journey, if you like, within business processing services and where we try and focus our efforts. Moving on now to technology. Again, you've seen this diagram before. It identifies the 5 focus areas in our technology business. So the application services business is about systems development, support maintenance. It's about systems integration and testing are all sort of services that we provide within that part of the business. And really that part of the business has been, if you like, the bedrock, the annuity, revenue, profit and cash flow of the technology services as we started to develop it. Strong customer base, good growth, good margin business. If you come round to learning platforms, that's a business effectively that's been developed out of an offering which was provided to the Ministry of Education in Malaysia. We were able to really package that as an offering which we believe we can now take to other geographies. So in some respects it's a service, but it's also product specific. And again, we would use, in that particular case, a partner to provide some of the technology content. Come around to engineering services. Much of what we do in the engineering services business is partnering with a major technology provider to manufacturing, which is Dassault Systems. We work with Dassault to effectively be a systems integrator and develop expertise in the integration of their software into manufacturing environments. And then on the Internet of Things, because again that's both an offering and can be a service. We're partnering there, for instance, with Machine Shop, where we've made an investment in Machine Shop, which is an application program interface designer. We do some of the development for those APIs. And we're developing specific product offerings in those areas where we have market and domain capability. So we've developed some specific offerings, for instance, in the connected building, which we're trying to take into the facilities management area. And then finally, moving down into software products, of course, the biggest component of software products is the insurance software part of the business. That, with the acquisition of AGENCYPORT and Total Objects, will become the largest part of the technology services business. And of course, the primary focus of that business is in the insurance market. And of course, that's the area where we've been investing quite heavily to accelerate the development of Zuba into these new markets, so into workers' compensation, for instance, in Australia, and into what's called the US admitted market. So if you look at the overall business, it is very focused in those areas for very specific reasons, and you can see that you've got a combination there of both offerings and products that will go directly to the customer. And this is the procurement slide. I particularly like this slide because what it does is it really captures the fact that the acquisition of Market Maker 4, to me, is the technology kernel of the development of the procurement business. Because if you take that as the starting point of technology, around that you can effectively put services to assist with the management of e-sourcing. So Market Maker 4 essentially an e-sourcing technology. You put the services around it, it gives you the managed service around an e-sourcing platform. But of course there's much more to procurement than just e-sourcing. So what we're now doing is investing quite heavily in just the development of the technology in procurement, and that's around contract lifecycle management, supplier relationship management, spend analytics. Some of you recall that we have a spend analytics offering called Vault. Bringing all of those offerings together will be done in the form of a mobile handheld device, a technology platform that effectively calls upon some third-party software where we believe we can buy in software into that technology platform, or indeed using our own technology such as Market Maker 4. So there'll be an element of internal development and an element of buying in third-party software. And then the outer circle there is all about the procurement services that you can then wrap around that technology offering. And you can see there that the real focus that we want to have within that business is around tail-end spend management and co-sourcing, as well, of course, all the e-sourcing activity that goes on around Market Maker 4. So some very interesting developments within the procurement business. And I think one of the really bold moves that we've made in the first half was actually to take the Market Maker 4 leadership of that business and have them leading the overall procurement business, because they have deep knowledge of supply chain management, and of course they have that deep technology knowledge as well. And to my mind, I see this really very much as a turning point of the procurement business, and that it should be going upward from here. So just looking then very briefly at the various investments that have been made in each of those building blocks, you can see, and David's already mentioned these, in technology, the investment in Zuba, so the acceleration of the development in the US, Australia. You can see the acquisition of AGENCYPORT and Total Objects, and also the investment that we've made in the machine shop business alongside CSR and Diebold, who are also investment partners within machine shop. And then in procurement, Market Maker 4, which of course was acquired last year, and we've invested further in the development of that technology and the procurement technology platform. And then within business processing services, continue to invest in the transition of the Xchanging Italy business. The announcement yesterday about the exercise of the put option in Fonds Depot Bank, continuing to invest, as David mentioned, in the London market, in IMR, and also the Central Services Refresh Programme, and of course the NetSet offering. So a lot of areas of investment really driving this focus on technology and technology-enabled services. So let me just pick up the acquisitions of AGENCYPORT and Total Objects and talk about these briefly. AGENCYPORT, a provider of insurance software, around about 160 employees, operating from the UK, operates in these markets, so the commercial P&C market, has a presence in the London market, and also operating in the health insurance market. So in terms of order of magnitude, the annual spend on commercial P&C software globally is around about 2 billion. London market very small and specialised, around about 50 million, and then the health insurance market around about 1.7 billion. So some pretty sizable markets to go after. Have a product which is branded under the Open label. And of course, the interesting thing about the business is it's got an additional market offering, which is the health insurance offering, so called Open Core Health, and then an additional product, Open Exposure. The other interesting aspect of AGENCYPORT is that, to a certain extent, in some of our what might be regarded as peers, peer companies are actually supplying software into those peer companies. If you look at Total Objects, a similar size business, so it's about 140 people, roughly 40 people in London, 100 people providing the development capability out of St. Petersburg, focused on the London market. So this is a business which is selling into the managing agents and retail, smaller retail brokers in the London market, product called Global. Interestingly, the area that they're selling into in the London market, which is managing agents and smaller retail brokers, is not actually a market that we specialise in through Zuba, because much of our business is around the P&C market within London. And then another interesting aspect to this business is what we call the Binder Cloud offering. So in the market, when you establish binding authority, we've developed an offering within our insurance business called Binder 360. Total Objects has an offering called Binder Cloud, which is software in the cloud, and we'll be able to combine those two offerings, which will provide a very compelling offering in the London market. If you look at the combined business, this is an opportunity for us to establish a leadership position in a significant global growth market. And we're probably the only company that will have an offering that is relevant to the London market, relevant to the reinsurance market, and relevant to the US admitted market when you combine these various products. Of course, the health insurance market is one that we haven't been in before, and this will be an opportunity for us not only to develop the software offering in health insurance, but also to think in terms of how we might take services around the software into that market. So it gives us an opportunity now to think about that. We, of course, have a business that is in the sort of quasi healthcare market through the workers' compensation business in Australia, and this is an opportunity to sort of establish a position in health insurance. And then under, of course, new offerings, the exposure offering, which is an offering which the AGENCYPORT business has, which is about risk aggregation and risk analytics, is something that we don't have within the Zuba overall combined product suite, and so that will be a very interesting addition. So it's a very interesting offering for the market, is really about aggregating risks and the calculation of risks. So overall, it's going to provide a pretty significant force in that market. And of course, the other aspect is the synergies that it brings. So extended customer base, it brings about a further 80 customers into Xchanging. Opportunities for cross-selling of services from existing business within our insurance business, but also cross-selling other services of Xchanging, upselling into those customers. Rationalising costs, so more effective cost management with the business. And of course, the other thing that it does do is it brings together a very strong management team, a combination of the management of AGENCYPORT, of Total Objects and of Zuba will make a very, very strong team to drive that business forward. And you probably saw the recent announcement that we're bringing Chris Baker, who's going to join us from Oracle, who's actually going to take the leadership role in that business as we drive it forward in that global insurance market. Turning briefly then to the financial services part of our business process servicing business. As I mentioned, this is more an offering around the capital markets part of financial services rather than a broader offering. As you know, we've progressed with the Kedrios and AR integration. That is largely complete now. David said we haven't yet gained the traction that we need to gain in the market, but with the integration behind us and the realisation of the synergies, it's now an opportunity for us to really start to try and take that business forward. We've got the full ownership now of Fonds Depot Bank, Interestingly, other than the arrangements which we have with Lloyds, that is the last of the enterprise partnerships that's effectively been unwound and the last of the options to be exercised that were outstanding before. So now we've got full ownership of Fonds Depot Bank. It gives us the opportunity to really try and develop that business in the German market, to bring more technology to the offering, and also to use technology to drive cost efficiencies within the business through automation and through just re-looking at the way that that business, the cost base of that business is configured. So I think lots of opportunities now, and in addition to that, we're looking at new products within those businesses, but also in financial services more generally. The idea really to try and develop some more offerings that we can take into the markets in which we're operating within financial services. Number of other growth pursuits. I've mentioned education platforms, trying to take that into an alternative geography. Machine shop, I touched on, so there's an opportunity for us to jointly market services into the Internet of Things or Internet of Everything arena. London market, really we continue to obviously invest in that market. It's a very important market for us, and that's something where we do see, as we go forward, opportunities for growth. In terms of analytics, I didn't comment on that. It was on the business processing services slide. Analytics to us is a business that sort of sits across business processing services and technology. What we're not going to do is try and become a big provider of analytics. There is lots of competition in that market. But what we want to do is focus on analytics in those areas where we have valuable information content. So the initial focus of that business will be around analytics for claims, where we, of course we have significant information and content that we can use, and also around spend analytics in procurement. And we'd like to see that offering develop over time. And in fact, there's a strong focus of technology used in that business. And in fact, that is actually being driven out of a technology group in Malaysia who are focusing very much on how you can bring technology to analytics. It's this point I was making earlier on about driving technology through business processing services, so it moves up that matrix into that top right-hand corner. And then NetSet. NetSet continues to be a product that we have confidence in and invest in. It's taken a while to actually get it into the market and established in the market, primarily due to the sales cycle of that product and the fact that the product itself does require interface with the systems within the potential customers for that. We continue to pursue a very strong pipeline in that, but the conversion of the opportunities is taking a little bit longer than we'd hoped, but we still do have confidence that we will be successful with that particular investment. And then very briefly on the internal change programs, this was launched some time ago and progresses. David talked about it in some detail. The important thing to me on this is about effective cost management. It's about taking costs in areas which relate to process, they relate to things that aren't necessarily customer and market facing, and taking that cost and being able to invest it in selling and marketing pursuits and in development of new offerings. So to me, it's about focusing on getting a strong sales and marketing capability, focusing on world-class operations, and also having good, solid shared services. So there's a whole bunch of projects which David mentioned, and these are very real projects that are being implemented now. Many of them have gone through fairly substantial period of time and are starting to generate savings. Still more to do, but very much an important focus so that we can have a very efficient and effective cost base within the organisation. So if I could just wrap up really in terms of the sort of overall summary and outlook for the business. We've gone on this transformation journey. I think we're a long way through that journey. And we continue on the journey. So the focus is very much about trying to build a business that has technology offerings and also service offerings that are technology enabled. And the two work very closely together, and there are clear synergies between having those businesses operating together. We've stepped up the investment, as you've seen, both in terms of our new product offerings and also the investment in terms of acquisitions. And most importantly of all, of course, that the two objectives which we set for ourselves at the beginning, the challenge, if you like, that we set was really about maintaining the operating profit of our business in 2014 versus 2013, despite the strategic exits, and of course to see a resumption of growth in 2015. We're very much on track to achieve that. So we'll now throw it open to questions, and David and myself, as you wish, please ask questions either through Lexi or whatever.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Splendid. So, David, would you like to
Morning,
start?
it's David Brockton from Libram. I've got three, if I can. I'll just take them in turn rather than give you all three at once. The first one, can I just go back to the BAE UK procurement outcome? I wonder if you could give us a bit of background into that, and also talk about how the loss of scale with regards to that contract impacts your ability to compete and win in procurement processing.
Okay, sure, David. So as I said, the contract that we had with BAE Systems in the UK was due to expire actually at the end of next year. So essentially what we've agreed with BAE Systems is that we'll bring it to an end a few months earlier, effectively, through 2015, and we wouldn't look to renew it beyond that. So from our perspective, that's because we want to reposition the business, the discussion this morning, reposition the business more around a technology offering rather than a P2P resource management offering. And so it fits in very well for us to be able to manage it at that time. It also fits in with a number of other change programs in terms of changing finance systems and back office processes at the same time, which if we were to carry that on longer would require a greater investment. So financially the impact is, as we said when we announced the contract a couple of years ago, it's a very low margin contract, very, very high gross revenue, but in terms of the margin it's a couple of £1 million of revenue to us, and essentially break even. The benefit that we do get is the working capital benefit, because we're paid a month or two before we actually need to pay suppliers. So that's the thing that will impact us next year. We'll mitigate as much as we can, but there will be an impact because it's quite a significant number, about 15 million of working capital. In terms of the broader piece, it doesn't really impact our offering. We've moved our offering with the pieces of business we've sought to sign, both in technology and outside of that. So business like L'Oreal, etc., don't rely on volumes or scale in that part of the business. So it won't impact other contracts, customers, or the growth opportunity in procurement.
Okay, thank you. The second one was just around the organic investment. Can you give us a feel for what payback horizon you're thinking about for your organic investment, and equally how you're benchmarking it sort of from a quantitative basis?
Okay, so if I split that into two, so the internal investment and the external investment. The internal investment, it varies depending on which project. So we started some of the projects significantly before others. So for instance, the move to Microsoft Office in the cloud is actually an enabler for some of the other things that we have to do. So the HR project we're finishing in the next few months, so the benefits of that are largely delivered, in fact, this year and going into next year. The finance piece is implemented next year, so there's the benefits on that are more next year. In terms of scale, the payback is over a couple of years typically. Varies on the particular thing that we're doing, but typically a couple of years. The benefits that we get this year were always part of our plan to actually make up the impact of the XCB, for instance, and the HR business and the LNE, etc. In terms of next year, we expect that to scale up a little bit for those internal projects that mature next year, like finance, and into 2016. For the external investment, by far the biggest chunk of that is the Zuba piece. And we've got a very strong, well-qualified pipeline before the acquisitions. So before we put the pipeline together with the two businesses that we've acquired, a very strong, large TCV pipeline of business, which continues to be well qualified. And we go into the second half with lots of opportunity. So as we've said many times before with insurance software, the fantastic thing about the platform that we've got is it's extremely sticky. It's an intergenerational product once it goes in. The flip side of that is it's an extremely significant decision for an insurance company to make. It's completely invasive. So we need to be patient with the pipeline and schedule the implementation. But we're starting to see the benefit of that in a number of areas. So MM4, for instance, in terms of profitable growth in that business this year. In terms of our fund administration investment, it's the investment that we're making in the fund administration business that's turned the business from a loss to a profit. In Germany, it's Allianz Global's investors' confidence in the investment we're making in the platform in Germany that means we've been able to recontract the business on an evergreen basis. So it varies over 2 or 3 years. As we say, what we're able to do then next year is to reduce the amount of that investment very significantly.
Thanks. You actually answered my third question.
Oh, fantastic. Try. What's the second?
Do we have any other questions from the floor? Yes.
John Milan, Investec. Just a quick one there in relation to the Founders Depot Bank. Could you just really expand on, the benefits of taking 100% ownership of that, and then sort of an allied question, the opportunities for growth within the German market?
Yeah, so I think the real benefit of making that investment is it does put us in a position now where we can effectively invest in the business and develop in the business in the way that we want to be able to do that. The key thing, and David's picked up on the point already, is that the contract actually was due to expire in October of next year. So we've now replaced what was a contract which would have accounted for, 220,000 accounts or so within that business. And that is now on an evergreen basis. So the interesting thing about the business, it is now in the market with a whole series of relationships with IFAs and so on, rather than us providing a service to a large institutional organisation. So it is very much now a standalone business operating in that investment account administration business. I think the opportunities for it are really around firstly trying to improve the offering that we make into the market, and that really is requiring us to move it from a business that was very much around processing into one that has got a more of a sales and marketing focus. And then the other aspect to it, of course, is for us to really take cost out of the business. And although under the previous environment clearly we had operating control over the business, you obviously have to be aware of the any concerns around your partner if you want to make certain changes in the way that you operate it. Now that will be totally under our control, and we can manage the cost base accordingly. So I think those are really the key areas. I don't know, David, anything?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the contract renewal for that 220,000 accounts, this is about 8 million euros of revenue per year. That sort of risk, if you like, contract risk next year has just gone away. So we've now got effectively 1 million end clients that we need to look after as a client-orientated, product-based business. So it's what we've looked to do for the last 18 months. It's actually happened a little bit faster than we'd expected. So that's great for us, and it's great for Allianz Global investors, I think.
David. Yep.
Just sorry, a follow-up question, if I can. Just for Ken, I guess you've made a lot of investments this year and acquisitions, but equally you've enlarged the RCF, and your headroom's gone up as a result of the FDB purchase. I just wonder if you can give us a feel for where you feel you are with regards to further acquisitions and bolt-ons for the group, and any particular holes in terms of the business, in terms of technology.
Well, I think I've always taken the view that we make acquisitions because they're effectively filling strategic gaps in terms of the way we develop the business. I think the acquisitions that we've made thus far have done exactly that. I don't think, I mean, we're not going to rush to find other acquisitions, but equally if there is something where we feel that it would be appropriate for us to make the investment, then clearly we will do that. So, I mean, one area might be, and we need to just evaluate this, but the health insurance area, as we evaluate that particular offering in that particular market, we may feel that that's a market that we want to extend our presence in, but I can assure you that evaluation will be done very carefully. The big focus, as far as I'm concerned, in the second half of this year, and it's certainly top of the list in terms of my priorities, is to make sure we get the integration of what we've actually acquired, get that right, before we go rushing off making any other sort of acquisition decisions.
Hi, it's Alex Patterson from Espirito. Just taking that on, in terms of the integration of what you've acquired, particularly your recent acquisitions, where do you think the integration risk lies? I'm assuming you've sort of locked in the key staff. I don't know if there's any change of control in any of the contracts, but what do you see the key risks as being, and how are you managing those? And then just a quick second question, on the Australian Workers' Compensation Platform, did you say what the investment was in that, and also can that be used elsewhere? Is this sort of unique to Australian workers' compensation, or does it have opportunities to be exploited elsewhere?
So I think the main risk when you make acquisitions actually is a cultural risk. It's bringing together different cultures. And I think interestingly, they're very complementary. We haven't yet announced the combined product strategy for the business. We will be doing that very shortly. It's something which we can't announce here because obviously we've not talked to customers about it yet. But we've already spent a lot of time obviously looking at the integration of the various offerings, and we have no real concerns around that. I think the main focus has to be around the fact that we're bringing together two very different cultures, in the sense that if you look at the AGENCYPORT business, it is a very sales, marketing focused business, which is good. That's what we need. And we, as an organisation within the Zuba business, we've obviously recently launched the Zuba brand a couple of years ago. That has been a big move forward from a sales and marketing perspective. But if anything, our focus historically has tended to be sort of product and technology based. They're two very high quality product suites. We're going to get the best of both of those. And it's really about trying to combine that management team, getting them to work together, make sure the cultures of the organisations fit. And there'll be a lot of energy going into that. And I think it's quite good actually to bring somebody in from the outside who's well versed in the software industry, not insurance, but very versed in the software industry in Oracle, to come and really lead that business going forward.
Did I take New South Wales?
Mm-hmm.
So on New South Wales, the investment's around 5 million that we're making in the workers' compensation platform. And interestingly, if you remember Ken's graph with the 4 boxes of where workers' compensation sat there, the interesting thing about that investment in the Zuba platform there is it would kind of take it much more towards the upper right-hand corner. So technology-enabled business processing service. So it's exactly what we want to do. There is risk associated with that, but it's exactly the sort of thing we have to do to develop the business, so we'll take that risk. The investment's about 5 million. And in terms of the reusability within the Australian workers' compensation market, which is a very big workers' compensation market, it would be reusable. On other contracts. So there's obviously we've got the big contract in Victoria where we use a common platform with everyone else. There's the New South Wales platform where we look to use it, and then there's other pieces of business that we want to grow the workers' compensation business in Australia using that platform for all new business that comes through. So there's some reusability there. If we're not successful in the contract, we need to look at it, frankly, but we certainly are hoping for success. In terms of reusability into other markets like the US, for instance, certainly the knowledge that we acquire as building the platform, we'd be able to reuse some of that. In terms of the actual technology, less so, because workers' comp tends to be very, very regionalised, even within the US, never mind outside the US.
Do we have any other questions from the floor? Have we exhausted you? No? Well, that remains therefore for me to thank you very much again for coming on this extremely busy day. and to draw the formal part of this meeting to a close. Thank you very much.